I would like to welcome you to Zabola Estate in Transylvania, Romania. I'm Gregor Roy Chowdhury, one of the owners of the estate. We are, to put it more in a geographical position, in the middle of the country of Romania, on the foothills of the Carpathians. Behind us, we have around 60 kilometers of Carpathians no man's land with bears and wolves, sometimes even entering the property. Now, what you see behind me is today used as a family home. It is the Mikes Castle in Zabola. The building originally dates to around 1500. The lower floor has up to 2-meter thick walls, and the middle floor has vaulted ceilings and painted with frescoes, which we renovated. They have been painted over, interestingly, by my great-great-grandmother. She didn't like the style, and we, after we took over the buildings, rediscovered them and renovated them in around 2009. The way the building looks today is from the 1860s, when my great-great-grandfather and his second wife, Sophie Moser, returned from exile after the 1848 revolution. You can see on top the family crest, on the left side the Mikes family crest, and on the right side the Moser family crest from Schaffhausen. The family was from Schaffhausen, and they were as well founders of IWC, for example, the watch company, and many other companies. The building used to be, or the property used to be, fortified with 2 lines of walls, one relatively close to here, and these walls have been demolished after the 1848 revolution to create an English landscape garden. One of the architects working on that was Achille Duchesne, the French garden designer, who, for example, worked on the Blenheim Palace in the UK. Around the turn of the century, another building was created, the so-called Newcastle, which we today use as a boutique hotel, and that's where we'll be walking now towards. However, I would like to point out one more building, which is towards this direction. It's the so-called Swiss Villa, remembrance of the Swiss ancestors. This was brought here in the 1890s from Vienna and assembled, and is now used as a private home as well. But let's continue to the new manor. What you see towards the back is part of the 60-hectare park, which we try to maintain. What I forgot to mention, however, is a little bit on the history, what happened. So in 1949, the building was expropriated by the communists, and my great-grandmother, the last owner, was taken to the Danube Delta to a labor camp. And in communism, the property was used as a youth camp for children, and later, and after the change, a home for mentally ill. We immediately after the change tried to recuperate the building and fought many lawsuits against the Romanian state, which we eventually won in 1999. And by 2005, we finally managed to take over the property and start restoration and renovation of the buildings. Until to date, we renovated over 4,000 square meters, but we are still going. Now, the 2 buildings, the old manor and the new manor, are connected by a tunnel. The tunnel used to be an escape tunnel from the old fortification, and when they connected the 2 buildings, when they built the new building, turn of the century, they used it to connect the 2 buildings with a big kitchen at the bottom of the building, and the food used to be brought up through the tunnel below the building to the preparation kitchen, and through a small staircase to the dining hall. What I would like to show you now is our little tunnel here, which we currently use as a wine cellar. And at the end, it's still hosting some beds, but otherwise we don't use it anymore for bringing food up to us. We will now go a little bit into the building, back over the bridge, which the guests are using. Or the guests used to use turn of the century or until the Second World War, when they were guests of the family. Now the building today has 11 guest rooms and hosts the big kitchen. It's a boutique hotel with all in all 24 rooms, but only 11 are here, with an average size of over 50 square meter, quite comfortable, with open chimneys and freestanding bathtubs. Now let's enter the building. So here we have the old staircase, which we managed to renovate and keep. The guest rooms are on 2 levels, and we are now entering the lower part, passing by our reception, which is hosted in the old tunnel. And now we come to the lowest floor, where we created a little bar, followed by our so-called break room, which is used for dining, and our lobby, which is used for most of the meals and dinners. Here on the left side, you see a chimney which we created from old pieces from other parts of the buildings. On the left side, you see the Mikesh family crest, and on the right side, the Betlen family crest. There was a couple living here around 1700, Mikesh Betlen, who lived here, and above the old family crest as it is used until today. Now we are passing the guest area and entering the park, which is mainly used by guests. In front of us, the old bookstores area, which we managed to renovate, and the fountain. And if we slowly turn around, the current guest house. And there's another building, the so-called machine house, which is a 300-year-old structure which used to host the electricity and the water pumps and so on. And above it is a Fachwerk construction from turn of the century. So this is our second guest house. And here's Shandor Lajos, our main horseman, with our 2 Stekler horses. We have started breeding horses a few years ago, as the family did over many generations. And now we continue our tour. The alley you see has been created for my great-grandfather's brother, who died in the 1848 revolution. And in remembrance, they planted the alley, which luckily didn't get destroyed by the communists, and the park remained more or less intact. After the alley in front is the so-called old saddle house. You see now here the old castle, the new castle, a newer pond which has been created by us. Above is an older pond which has been created in the 18th century. At the end of the alley is the so-called old saddle house, which is used as an estate office at the bottom, and on the top we have an apartment for guests. We are now in the more actively used part of the park. So as I mentioned at the beginning, it is around 60 hectares, and this is a more intensively used 14, 15 hectares. To the right, we can see our event building, which used to be the old stables for the horse club. But at high times, there were more than 290 horses constantly here and sold to the army. This was for the private horses with marble floors and marble sinks. In the First World War, however, the stud had to flee in front of the front towards Hungary. It was incorporated into the Hungarian state stud. Later in communism, this was used as a school building. But when I moved here in 2002, most of the roof was collapsed and we had to totally dismantle the building. Here you again have a nice view, seeing the two manors, the old one and the new one, which are connected by the tunnel and the bridge. Here I would like to show you our conservation program. We manage large forest and agricultural land and created a biodiversity and wildlife protection and habitat protection program and a wetland creation program. So this is something we do in addition via our family foundation, but this is another topic. So I show you now our the old stables, which more or less have two rooms, two large halls, which we use for events, for-profit events, but as well for many cultural events and non-profit events. We have the so-called red room with an open chimney and high ceilings. The building originally is around 250 to 280 year old, obviously changed over the centuries and adapted now to this modern use of for events. Here is our event hall, followed by the garden, which is behind the event building. The final place I would like to show you is our horse stud and riding area. This was added. It used to be part of the park, but we added it not so long ago. We started to breed Segler horses, which is a local horse bred around 145 centimeters high, and another line we do is English thoroughbred mixed with Arabs and creating Anglo-Arabs. So here we have some kids. Hello. The riding area opened. We just opened a cafe today, our Riders Club, and we have here a riding area where we wanted to host a riding event this year. However, due to the pandemic, it was not possible. Hopefully next year we'll continue with these efforts. So here you see our little clubhouse and the stables for the around at the moment 20 horses. So little foals, many of them. Here we see one of our Segler ladies. We have Shari, our Segler stud, and in the middle we have here Scotty, and an Regla Arab mix, which is a young foal. So I hope, yeah. The last room I would like to show is our tech room, where we actually spend quite a lot of time. I hope you more or less enjoyed your stay here, and eventually will visit us in Transylvania, Romania. Thank you to the European Houses Association, and I hope you enjoy your next visit in Austria. Cheers.